This will be a long session, but it's going to be totally worth it, because if I can get you in the correct mindset for how to practice and how to build your own practice routine that's specific to you and your requirements, then I think that you'll be able to take the lessons from the book and use them more effectively. I think everything will work so much better. We're on Facebook now, and there are Facebook groups out there that focus on guitar, and they can be less than encouraging, let's say. But the thing is, the sheer volume of statements sometimes that if you post something and you say, look, I'm having problems understanding modes or learning scales or something like that. There's a ton of things that people ask, and in my mind, there's no such thing as a stupid question. So really, what we want to be able to do is you want to be able to ask these questions, but more often than not in the groups, what gets said is practice, practice, practice. And this infuriates me. I find it the most useless statement that you could ever, why even bother contribute to a conversation if it's not adding to it? It's just a useless statement. Let's put it that way. Just say that. So the thing that I want to talk about, I've got a lot of notes here, to be honest. The thing I want to talk about is practice and this idea of coming up with practice. Now let me just dispel the myth that practice makes perfect. Practice does not make perfect. It's one of those things that people say, we just trip it off our tongue and it gets used all the time. It's wrong. It's just completely wrong. Here's what does make sense. Perfect practice makes perfect. So you have to add this. Imperfect practice makes imperfect. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we don't engage in imperfect practice, because that's what slows you down. That stops you from getting the results. So that's what today is about. I want to show a way to help you, no matter what your goals are, to build the practice session that gets the most out of it for you, whatever it is. And this is alluding to the graphic I put up the other week. You could see there were different elements that I consider that you need to put in front of your thought process, in your mindset of how you're going to practice. I've done a video on the YouTube channel about setting up a dedicated practice space. I do think that's vital, because if you've got a space that's set aside, that means that when you come to do some practice, you can do 4 minutes while the kettle is boiling, and that adds to the day. It might be the only practice you get in that day because I have busy adults and things to do and everything else. So we want to make sure that we get that in there, that practice. And if you've got a dedicated space, then that's a lot easier than pulling the guitar out from under the bed, setting up a music stand. No, that's not the way to go. We need to know about how to practice perfectly. And there are 2 things that we need to focus on. And these are called domains. These are how we learn, the 2 learning domains that we want to know about. The first one is psychomotor. That is making the thoughts in your brain make your hands do the things that you want them to do. So that's the psychomotor. So the motor is the hands, getting the hands to do as they're told, and your body, in fact, for that matter. And then the other domain is the cognitive. And that's basically, I think a lot of beginners, if this is you, put something in the comments that if it is you, that you do too much cognitive, try to consume too much theory before you have control of the hands. Control of the hands is everything. And I talk about this in another lesson about the visual, how things look, kinesthetic, how it feels, auditory, how it sounds. Those are the 3 things that equal mastery on the guitar. We've got to think about the psychomotor and the cognitive. Now, you may have seen Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers. It talks about something called the 10,000 hours theory. The 10,000 hours thing, the gist is that it's 10,000 hours to become an expert in a subject. So to put 10,000 hours in on your guitar is fantastic. Now, I know adults don't always have the time to do that. So what do? There is another concept, and this is that it takes 20 hours to get a good, solid, basic understanding of specific things. So if, say, for instance, you wanted to look into, I don't know, photography and how a lens works, 20 hours to understand how to use a lens properly, I think you get a good understanding of what is involved in that. And then that gives you a good solid foundation to look at other things that are associated with that topic as well. So you can join this thinking up together, and this is what it is. We put these chunks together to make the body of knowledge that we have. So 20 hours of looking at something, so the 10,000 hours and the 20 hours. Now, and let me just state as well, as a guitar teacher, when people turn up sometimes, they won't have practiced all week, and then they know they've got the lesson the next day, so they do 3 hours of excruciating, painful practice because the fingertips have softened, or it's been so long since they've had the last lesson that they've forgotten a lot of the information. So they're trying to cobble it together, and that is not the way to practice. We don't want to get into that kind of practicing. It's actually better to do 4 minutes of practice, like I said, while the kettle boils, than do that painful 3 hours, because it's guilt driven. And we don't want to do anything based on guilt. We want to always have positive feelings about the learning process. We always want to. Why do guitar in the first place? It's a joyful thing, creating music. So this is why we do it. We want to create joy in our lives for ourselves, and this is who we do it for. We do it for ourselves. So how often do you practice? There are thought processes around 15-minute cycles before you lose attention span. If it's 15 minutes, then that's great. I know a lot of you guys out there feel guilty about not practicing enough. 15 minutes, it's great if you do 15 minutes a day, but you have to counter that against the 10,000 hours and realize that you will only progress so much depending on the goals that you have with your guitar playing. So you've really got to balance that idea there. But 15 minutes of focus practice will always trounce an hour of distracted and fragmented thoughts and trying to do this, that and the other. What we're after doing is we're after motivation. We're after maintaining our motivation. The motivation to do things is how we get things done. If we look at the root word motive, it means reason. So there has to be a real solid reason why we set up, how we set up our practicing. It's to motivate us so that by making incremental gains and just getting that little bit better every time you practice, you get that motivation. It creates momentum, and the momentum is the thing that you need to maintain. So we've got to find that. The first thing here, and that is, how do you do motivation? What motivates you? And the thing in my mind that's always super, super important is to stay close to the catalyst. You have to stay close to the catalyst. Now, my catalyst story is that I met a girl, my first love, she broke my heart. I watched a film called Crossroads with Ralph Macchio, and it was about the blues. And I heard that sound and I was compelled to make that sound, because that was the sound that I felt was my life. I felt that was my life. That music spoke to me on such a deep level. It made me feel compelled to play the guitar. So the catalyst could be that you saw the Beatles when you were younger, or you had an uncle who played guitar in a band, or a relative, or somebody. Could be anybody that you saw, and they inspired you. They inspired you enough to want to play the guitar. So the thing is, let's talk about this catalyst. It's important that the catalyst has some meaning to you as well. Let me just remove this a minute. It's really important that the catalyst has meaning to you. If it's the blues that is the thing that turned you on to the idea of playing guitar, then I see little point in taking that practice time and using it to try and learn classical pieces, because what you're doing is you're not triggering the emotion that made you want to pick up the guitar in the first place. You're not triggering the catalyst. You may feel that as part of your practice you have to play all your modes when all you want to do is play some simple chords. Obviously, you progress and you want to build on these skills, but if you move too far away from the catalyst, you become unmotivated, and that's when doubt and lack and confidence becomes an issue. Those two things are the killers of dreams, and you end up with a dusty corner guitar, and we don't want any of that. We really don't want that. My whole reason for teaching guitar is to stop that from happening, for making sure that people can take this dream that they have in the head and actually make it come true. Just make it happen, and try and give steps towards that, making that happen. So it's really important that we guard the energy that you have when it comes to putting your practice in on your instrument. So going back to this diagram here, this catalyst, this is, like I say, this is the thing. Let me see in the comments, what is the catalyst for you picking up your instrument? What was the thing that made you want to play guitar? What was it? Is it something that you're an adult now and you maybe wanted to do as a kid but you couldn't do because you had to do exams? There's loads of different reasons. We'll get some of those in that comments section there. So the thing is, what we need to do is we need to put the catalyst, and we need to look at these elements of learning the guitar. The first three things that we need is to understand the fretboard. Now, the fretboard, why do we need to understand the fretboard? It's just to be able to find where the chords live, where the scales live, where the arpeggios live, and have a series of predictable patterns that we can reliably just call upon. Now, I mentioned that in my other video on the visual, the auditory, and the kinesthetic, how to learn things quickly. It is actually in the book, Learn Scales Faster, page 72, in the book. If you write that down, guys, then you have a look at that. Then that explains this idea of the kinesthetic, the visual, and the auditory, and how that leads to mastery. It's really important that you understand these things so that you don't waste time. I'm 53 this year, and I'm feeling the pressure of not wasting time. I've got so much to teach, and I want to get it out there. So we have the vocabulary. Now, the vocabulary is just how to speak music, and obviously what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to speak the emotions that we have inside ourselves, and generally the things that we want to say in our vocabulary are close to the catalyst anyhow. The technique is just how to do the things, how to bend a string, how to put a chord on cleanly, or how to hammer on. There aren't that many techniques, and what we do is we take those three things, the fretboard, the vocabulary, and the technique, and then what we do is we fire them through into playing. It's a wonderful thing. We play guitar. We don't do guitar. We don't work guitar. We play guitar. So doing and applying these things, you will find that if you are pulling the information for the fretboard out from the catalyst, the vocabulary from the catalyst, the techniques from the catalyst, what you'll end up doing is you'll end up playing the music and the songs that you want, the repertoire. You will build up a repertoire of stuff that you play, and it makes you happy. This is the way it works. We build that repertoire, and then what we do is we just go back to the catalyst. We keep on checking in on the catalyst. Make sure you keep on going back to that. The cool thing is with music is that the catalyst, it changes all the time, because what happens is you discover a new band that you think is amazing, and you go, oh, this is my new favorite band. This becomes the new catalyst, and that's how you expand your vocabulary, you expand your fretboard knowledge, you expand all those techniques and all those different ideas. This is where that comes from. This is where it's all got to go. So it's really important to have that kind of flow down. So we got that idea there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to guide you through a process of taking the catalyst ideas and how to actually practice them. It doesn't matter what it is. It really doesn't matter. If you want to learn fingerstyle blues or you want to learn Van Halen, it's the same process. Doesn't matter the genre. If you want to learn jazz, you want to learn pop, you want to learn anything, it's the same processing that we need to do. It's just the ingredients that we gather. You need to have realistic expectations as well when you could go through this. If you have lesser mobility in your fingers as you get older, I know I've found that sometimes that if I don't work my hands hard enough, they will slow down. It's just the aging process. You've got to maintain that stamina, and that's part of playing. Is it playing and practice? Is practice playing? Is playing practice? Which one is it? But as long as it's maintaining the muscles in the hands and all those psychomotor connections. So psychomotor control is the first step. And if we apply that to guitar, what I wanted to do is I always think that people over-egg first lessons. And I have this idea with the lesson, and that is to do something that I call starting small. And this, you can have a lot of fun with this starting small business. Here are 3 chords. We've got an E5, a D5 and an A5. I've done them in the wrong order, but it's fine. You understand. The basic gist with this is that you can see is that there is one finger on. We've only got one finger on one string. If we look at the E5 chord there, for instance, yes, if you look at that E5 chord, you can see that the index finger is on the A string at the 2nd fret, and you have an open E string. And notice that the other 4 strings are muted. What we're doing is we're only playing 2 strings. 2 strings, that's it. That's all we're doing, looking at 2 strings. What we're going to do is we're going to slide a finger up a fretted string until you find a sound you like. What you like, what I like, might be completely different. And what you're going to do is ask yourself, what is the emotional value of that sound? And then the next step is to repeat in 2 more positions to invoke the power of 3. The power of 3 is an amazing thing. It comes up all the time. I think if you have 3 chords for a verse, 3 chords for a chorus, and 3 chords for a middle 8, you've got a song. 3 chords and the truth. This is all we need. In 2 more positions to invoke the power of 3. Create a simple rhythm. And what we can do is we can use words of objects around us to make these rhythms. And then what you can do is change strings and repeat the process. You can even use this with open strings and play scales behind it. There is no right or wrong as well. It's not about incorrect or correct. It's just information. What you're doing is you're building up an auditory library of which positions that you put your finger, do they sound awful? Do they sound great? This is all you're doing, is you're logging that information. That's all that is going on there. And especially if you're an absolute beginner, once your index fingertip is wrecked, change your fingers and then wreck another one to build up the calluses on those fingertips. It's really important to build those calluses up. That's what you need to be able to do there. Now, so I've got an acoustic just to like I say, to demonstrate this idea here. And this, I think, might have been one of the first things I intuitively did when I started out on guitar myself. And I'm going to play the E string, and that power chord there is great as it stands. So if we take that there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just slide it up and I'm going to put it somewhere. I'm not going to be very, precise about it. I'm just going to slide it up. Good. Now this is good. Listen. It sounds off. Does it sound nice? Does it? Unless I resolve it by moving down 1 fret or by moving up 1 fret. I can do that. So this is a good observation to have. And that first finger is sliding up and down this string. It's a sneaky way to build the calluses in the fingers, to be honest. So if we take that there, now you can hear I've got 3 different positions. And this is what I said was, Now that's got a lot of tension to it. Yes, so you can hear that there. Let's see if we can make something a little bit more pleasant. Oh, wonderful. I put that major third there of the E chord. What you can see is I'm just moving that finger around there, and you're building up this idea. Now, the other thing that I said was, if your picking is basic, then all you need to do is look around and then find an object. That's, I don't know what you guys in the States call that. This is a measuring tape. This is what we call it. A measuring tape. Probably called something else. Measuring tape. Measuring tape. I'm just tapping the rhythm there. So you see, that's very simple. If you've got a looper pedal, bang that down on your looper and then play over the top of it. So you can expand upon these ideas. So this is the idea of starting small. But the reason I wanted to show you starting small is because even though it seems to be a simple idea that I'm showing you, there's a lot involved. It's like fretting correctly, which is a technique thing, knowing where I am on the fretboard, which is a visual and a cognitive thing, so we have to do that. The action of fretting, psychomotor, so we're activating all these different things, and it might feel that it's a simple idea, but the things that are going on in the background, those are reinforcing how to press down on the strings, how to maintain that, also building the stamina, building the calluses on your fingertips as well. So there's lots we can do in this idea. Do it with a chord. Look at this. This is an A sus2. That sounds very proggy again. So the thing is, what we can do is we can do simple ideas. Like I say, I just extended that a little bit, and that's starting small. Starting small is really important. Don't overwhelm yourself. It's crucial that you don't overwhelm yourself and you make sure that you can handle the workload. Let's get into this. This is where it all goes down. Now, you know what it is, the catalyst of the thing that you want to learn. So it could be something as simple as learning some Beatles songs. Let's just say it's Beatles songs. Let's have a think. What's a good one? Eleanor Rigby. That's only 2 chords, E minor and a C chord. So that might be the thing that you want to think about there. We're going to build this repertoire. Now, before you had your catalyst moment, you were in the realm of unconscious incompetence. You didn't know what it was that you wanted to do, so you didn't know how to do it. Hopefully that makes sense. Because you weren't even aware that playing guitar was going to be a part of your future. Then the catalyst happens, and the catalyst is that primary motivator, the prime mover in your development as a guitar player. What we've got is we've got unconscious competence, the catalyst, and that catalyst, once you hit that catalyst, then we know what we want to do. We know we need to learn how to play guitar. And that's when you switch from being in unconscious incompetence to being in conscious incompetence. You know what it is that you want to do, but you just can't do it. You don't know how to do it yet. So what we need to do is we need to do research and find the resources and ingredients that make up what the catalyst is. And this is critical. So we need to move from unconscious competence into conscious incompetence in that manner. The thing with conscious competence, what we want to try and do is we need to shift it from conscious incompetence over into conscious competence. Now, there is neuroscience papers out there that reckon that the human brain can handle 3 plus 2 or minus 2 conscious processors at any given time. The way to think about it is if you've got your computer open and you have too many browsers and too many programs running, the computer goes, doesn't want to play anymore. So really it's the same process with humans. Now, plus 2, you may be hydrated. You may be in tip-top condition. You've been getting lots of sleep. So that means you are operating on a conscious competence high level. But if you're like me and you know that you don't get enough sleep, you don't drink enough water, you don't get enough exercise, all those sort of things, then you know that you're probably going to be operating at less than minus 3. So because of that, you have to be aware of that and how much you put into this exercise I'm going to show you. Now, this is how you do the work. This is how you do the work of shifting something from conscious incompetence to conscious competence. So let's say conscious incompetence is you want to play an A chord. We'll call that ingredient X. Okay, so we call that ingredient X. Now, ingredient X is all the steps that are involved in making that thing happen, where the work happens. It might be learn to play an A chord. You struggle to get your fingers in the right frets, or that could be the bottleneck. What we have to do here is we have to have absolute awareness, slow things down. If you are not registering your observations, so ingredient X and ingredient Y. So basically, everything that we need to do, you can boil it down to 2 steps, 2 ingredients. This is what we're doing. 2 ingredients, ingredient X, ingredient Y. So if you want to put an A chord on, ingredient X, the first one could be your index finger. The next one could be to put your middle finger on. And that is how slow you have to take it. You have to think to yourself, okay, I have to monitor how it feels, what it looks like, make sure that my diagrams that I have in front of me match the diagrams that I have in my head. Your brain will lie to you and feed you fuzzy diagrams and information. We don't want that to be happening. We want everything to be absolutely 10 out of 10 in your brain. Let's also look at something like, say, ingredient X is playing an A chord and then moving to an E chord. That's where the work is happening. Now, what can sometimes happen is that you've got to focus on the bottlenecks. It's very easy to fill up your time practicing, going to the beginning of a verse when the thing that's going wrong, the bottleneck or the challenge that you face, is happening on bar 8. 8 bars, you've got to wait till 8 bars till you get back to the mistake to do the mistake again. We don't want to do that. Pull the mistake out and put it in isolation. This is what this yellow box is. We put it in isolation, and what we do is we repeat it to defeat it. Here are some methods that are based on neuroscience as well. So this is absolutely tapping into this 3 plus 2 and minus 2 conscious competence idea. And what this does is it gives us learning accelerators. So what we want to do is we want to put these 4 things in here. Let's have a look. So we've got, let me just turn this off. I'll do a demonstration like I was saying here. So let's look at it from being an E chord. So say it was a struggle between moving from an E chord to an A chord. We take that there, and what we want to do is we want to make sure that we take our time and observe. Watch your hands. I will say this, that I find it quite funny when people say, I'm going to change the chords, I'm going to deny myself information to just check whether I was doing it right. I'm going to look up at the ceiling and change these chords without looking. Yeah? Don't do that. Make sure you look. Look. It's fine. Look, it's okay. Once you pass this on into the last stage of this diagram that I've got here, you won't need to look. There is no spoon from the Matrix. How do you bend the spoon? There is no spoon. So the thing is, we take this E chord and we watch and we break it down, and this is why I say it's always a good idea. And if you've seen my video on changing from an E to an A chord, I go lift, shift, plant to get to an A. That's step by step. You break things down. What we're doing is we're getting rid of that bottleneck. So the thing might be, that's 3 steps. Let's take it down even more. Let's just focus on the lift. There. I know that seems really ridiculously silly, but the thing is, if you work this principle in, it becomes one of those things where just taking those fingers off like that, your kinesthetic, your body starts to say, I know this, I've learnt this. It doesn't feel alien, so therefore I can't mentally rebuke it. This is what happens. So we take that off. Next, what we do is we're focusing on the take it off and sliding the finger up. Okay? All right, go back to the E again. Take the fingers off, slide up. So we're working on the bottleneck. Like I said, so there's pattern interrupt. So let's do a pattern interrupt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and, in between these, I'm going to try and think of and give the name of a type of pasta. Linguine. Spaghetti. Fusilli. So what I'm doing there is I'm forcing my attention to another part of the brain, and what that does is it makes the connection. We're trying to crop down on the reaction time from doing the one thing and then doing another by intercepting it with a deliberate thought, this pattern interrupt, to make this happen. It could be anything. You could list the names of all your girlfriends that you've had in your life, or all the boyfriends you've ever had in your life, in between them. So in between the chord changes, there's lots of different things that you could put in there. The other one was chunking. Let's look at it chunking from the perspective of, say, learning. Let's look at the E blues scale. So what I'll do is I'll go, my first chunk is just going to be the E string. And then what I'm doing is I'm focusing on how that finger feels there. I'm going to try it on this finger here. I've introduced a variation. I'm going to just build an exercise around that there. So I've got a few different ways of playing that and putting variations into that. And that's my first chunk. Then if I take my second chunk, okay. And now what I've done is I've joined 2 chunks. Chunk 1, chunk 2. Now I'm playing that slowly, and I mentioned something called bursts. Bursts are a fairly recent thing that we want to introduce. So if we play this slowly, at a tempo, use a metronome if you want to, then what we could do also is play that with a burst. We'll keep it at a tempo, and then what we'll do is we'll play it really quick. And if we do it randomly, then it means that you're not laying down a pattern, and then that becomes something that you do all the time, which can be a bit annoying, but we want that as well. We do want patterns to be programmed in there. So just putting that there, and then putting the last part of that scale on, from the open to the second there. So then coming down, I can put some variations in that by playing 2 notes on each note. So we could do that. We could do that with the chords as well. Keep it really simple. Hopefully that makes sense there, guys. We've got to hand over that information from the conscious incompetence to the conscious competence using those little learning accelerators. They make it just a little bit easier for you to program all these things in. And this could be based on the songs that you know and love. Now, here's where the good stuff happens. This is really where the good stuff happens. We move from conscious competence into unconscious competence. Unconscious competence is you can do it and you don't need to think about doing it. It just happens. You know where it is. It's like driving a car. If you can drive a car, you can play guitar. It's as simple as that. If you can drive a car and maintain a conversation, then you're an Uber driver. Then you will know what I'm talking about here. Now you can see here, what we do is we essentially hand off from conscious competence into the unconscious competence where the flow state happens. Flow is really interesting. There is a book called Flow. It's a great read. And that is where you drop into that creative state where you tap into all the repertoire and the techniques and everything else, all the other information and knowledge that you have. You put it in there, and that's where mastery resides as well. This is what I call the noodleometer, going from conscious competence up to unconscious competence. We start where we are really having to think about the thing that it is that we need to do. And when we do that, we want to do it perfectly. This is going back to the beginning of what I said right at the start of this session, is perfect practice makes perfect. So slow down so that you can observe everything and make sure that you are playing and programming your hands in the correct manner, programming your brain in the correct way so that it is perfect, so that when you play it and it moves into flow state and into unconscious competence, it isn't defective. It isn't one of those things that you play wrong every time. If that is the case, that you've got something that you've programmed wrong, then you need to go back to conscious incompetence and look at how you can deal with that, how you can make those ingredients work again. See where the bottlenecks are. Where the bottlenecks are, get a good technique going, get a good understanding of what you are meant to be visualizing on the guitar neck, and use those learning accelerators to overwrite the untrustworthy method that you have that crops up all the time and annoys you. Because this is one of the things that I know that people deal with. Switching that into unconscious competence. Let me just come out of here. Hopefully you have this idea of a model of taking any information that is relevant to you. It's personal to you. The genre doesn't matter. It's the process that is the important thing. And gathering your ingredients and your resources that you need to make sure doesn't take long. We've got the beauty of the internet. This is about building the visual shapes from diagrams with cognitive psychomotor control, where we repeat it to defeat it, reinforcing, building up your library of sounds, building up your library of sensations of holding chords and playing scales, building up your library of pictures of the chords and your fretboard knowledge. And that goes back to those three things that I mentioned before. The fretboard, that's where you explain the theory. That's where the theory stuff applies. But you've got to start basic. Technique, vocabulary, and then putting that into playing and chunking things down. The problem now then might be that you think to yourself, that's great, Ricky, but I don't know what ingredients I need to play the music that speaks to me. The music that when I hear it, I go, oh, that's brilliant. I really love that song. So let's look at something, and this is a problem solving tool. I will say actually that I use this all the time just for life. And it's brilliant for helping you with this. But say, for instance, let's just think about a scenario. Let's say it was the Beatles again, capo on the 7th fret. Guess what song we're going to play? Here Comes the Sun. So let's imagine it was that, using a capo at the 7th fret and playing those chords up there. And the challenge with that is, with the capo so high up, is that the frets feel a lot smaller. Whereas when you're starting out, the frets feel so wide at the bottom, especially if you're trying to play a C chord or an F chord. Then we really want to make sure that we can think our way around this. So how do we find the ingredients? I might even change my mind here. We might say that we're going to learn some funk. So say we want to learn funk, okay? I'll change it to that because that's a bit more explicit. It's not just based on a song. It's a genre. And you'll find that once you understand the genre, they use a lot of the same techniques and devices. So let's have a look. This is something that I call I Grow C. I love my acronyms and mnemonics. I Grow C. It's originally I Grow, but I think it's important to put the C on the end there, guys. So the I stands for the issue, the specific challenge or problem. Now, so the specific challenge or problem is that you can't play funk. For whatever reason, you can't play funk. And the goal is what you really want instead. So the goal is, and you've got to know what it is that you want instead. You want to be able to play funky chords, and you want to play them high up the neck, or you want to play them in any position that you want to on the guitar neck. So let's say it's that. Now what we've got to do is we've got to have a dose of reality. The R stands for where you're at right now. Yeah, so from 0 to 10, funk chords. What chords are funk chords? This is where you need to go away, do your research. Remember what I said about the catalysts. If funk is the catalyst, then you need to find out what the ingredients are. The ingredients of funk are, let's look at octaves. So it might be octaves, and it might be 9th and 13th chords. Let's just look at those three things there. Oh, and let's have a look at something like, okay, 16th note strumming. Yeah, 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. So that's what we're looking at. 16th note strumming. So where are you at with that? Do you know your 9th chords? Okay, if you don't, you've got to find your resources that you need. Yes, so this is what your options. What could you do to beat the issue, to defeat the issue? What could you do? You go out on the internet, you get yourself a book. There's lots of places to find the resources. It's not like back when I started out on guitar and I had to go and copy things with a piece of paper down at the library because I didn't have a library card. Those sort of things, and there wasn't enough places to get the books. What could you do to beat the issue? You could work on 16th note strumming without chords, just doing a scratchy chord sound. Just getting that first, getting the looseness, looking into the technique. What is the technique behind 16th note strumming? What challenges are you going to have? And how do you slow that down and make it this XY bottleneck idea? So the bottleneck is, I'm doing this 16th note strumming, but my pick is sliding round. It's sliding round my fingers and I'm losing it, or I'm dropping it. So it might be, all right, I'll try another pick. And the options could be, I want to learn funk, but do you know what I'm going to do is, I think if I'm going to learn funk, I need some really nice purple flared velvet trousers. You might think to yourself, that is going to do it. But is that a realistic option? You need to write this list of options out for that thing. Yeah, so you'll find the answers, and you can probably think of these things. I know for a fact that playing 16th note scratch chords is going to be way more advantageous than playing in your purple velvet pants with your high heels on. So we need proper options. You write down as many options as you can think of, no matter how ridiculous. Even put the flares in there. If that's what you need to do to feel the emotion of the music, then that might be the thing. Do you know what? It's not that ridiculous an idea, is it? Because there is a film, Little Big Man, with Dustin Hoffman, and he is adopted a Native American father who says to swim like a fish, first you must think like a fish. That means meditate on the thing, become the thing. If you're doing heavy metal, then you need to be heavy metal. You can't be jazz and be heavy metal at the same time. So we've got IGRO, I grow. Now W stands for the way forward. This is the plan. So what you do is your list of options that you have, you write them down, and what is the plan? What are you going to do to defeat the challenge that you have? Remember, we're keeping this close to the catalyst. So the catalyst is to play funk. You've heard Parliament of Funk, and you need to understand that there. So you need to write it down. What is the whole thing about funk? Look up funk rhythms, and you find out that Bootsy Collins does something called the funk formula. Check it out on YouTube. That can give you some information. Oh, right, okay, now I understand something. And that gives you the plan. And that plan, let me just take this off here. And that plan becomes your practice routine. This becomes really laser targeted on what it is that you want to learn on guitar. It means that you have a system. You're not just being random. You're not just picking up a book and thinking, I should learn that. I've been on a Facebook group and they just said practice, so I'll just practice all the things. I won't target specific things when you need to target the specific things. And like I say, by maintaining that connection to the Catalyst, you will feel motivated and excited to practice. You need to feel excited that you can't wait to get home to pick up your guitar. There's no better feeling. Or my wife usually says, predict it. If I watch something on the telly and it's got guitars in it, she knows I'm gonna she knows I'm gonna slink off upstairs up here and I'll be practicing and I'll come up here to play. And what I'll be doing is I'll be carrying the ideas that were in that music that I was listening to and then putting them into practice here, because that's the Catalyst. I go up here and then I try and work it all out. And then what happens is, the cool thing is, you end up with this library of understanding. And if you've ever seen anybody pick up a guitar and just work stuff out on the fly, that's all programmed in. It's not some mystical, magical thing. It looks like a mystical, magical thing, but it isn't. It's focus, practice, and understanding and connecting it with the techniques that are required to play a funk, to play a blues, to play jazz, to do any of the genres, to do any of the music. That's all it is. And once you have that, you can pick up the guitar. And sometimes I don't even have to think about it myself. I'll just pick up the guitar and I'll just go boom. And it's like my hands are magnetized to the scale, because the library's up here. The brain knows. It knows the sound, and it says that sound is the scale, this scale played at the 7th fret, and that's what it is. You just know what it is. It's intrinsic. You know it inside. But to get there, I'm going to say it's probably 10,000 hours, and there's probably more than 10,000 hours. So, realistic expectations here, guys. So, just going back to my diagram again, we've got the I, grow, C, the issue, the goal, the reality, the options, and the way forward. But the C stands for something, and the C is something that is super, super important, and that is to celebrate and recognize your wins. If you have an awesome practice and you think to yourself, man, I'm really getting it, celebrate it. Have yourself a cup of coffee, go out and look at the clouds, pontificate on the wonder of life, and feel really good about it and actually celebrate it. If you might even have bigger celebration goals that you can actually apply to that. You say, okay, 3 songs that I want to learn. You can break down learning songs in this manner as well. You chunk a song. How do you eat an elephant? You break it down into chunks, into small bite-sized chunks. So you do that. It might take you a while to learn, but that's okay, because it's the journey as well. It isn't always about the definitive, finished article. It's the process of learning as well. It's this wonderful thing about the journey of learning to play guitar. And you don't know how the challenges that you're facing on the guitar might give you the understanding to other challenges that you find on the guitar as well. Or it might be even in something completely unrelated. I don't know, your golf swing. Golf is actually comparable to playing guitar in some ways as well. What I'm saying here is that it's important to reward yourself. So if you said 3 songs, I'm going to learn these 3 songs, and then I have validated my effort. The work I've put in this means that I can go to the guitar store and get myself a wonderful new guitar. And then you've got that guitar on the wall, and every time you see that guitar, it reminds you of your work ethic that you put in to get that guitar in the first place, which is absolutely fantastic, because you've got this visual anchor there to help you to understand that, which is absolutely amazing. I think that just about covers what I was on about here with this practice routine. Did you notice there's nothing specific about play this scale, play that chord, play this? Because it's not cookie cutter in that way. But once you understand this process, then what you can do is you can apply it to the catalyst that makes you want to pick up the guitar and continue to pick up the guitar and get better just a little bit every time you pick it up. And that's all you can do. That's all you can hope to do. And sometimes you will pick it up and you will feel like you're going backwards. But as long as you're in touch with that, you can use that to your benefit and realize that maybe I wasn't in the right mood. If you've driven home from work and there's 2 hours of traffic, maybe the guitar's the best way to relax, but maybe it isn't. Maybe a beer and stand outside and look at the birds and the clouds and all that sort of stuff and pontificate and wonder about life. This is just one of those, hopefully one of those helpful things that is just going to help you to get your way around the book. Like I say, I always think about this. This is my whole thought process. Let's look at that one. 5 pentatonic box patterns. See, this has got the ingredients. What you've got is the ingredients list here. That's all it is. That's all the resource is. If you look at it, you'll see my thinking now. Look at the pentatonic power-ups page. I just added a little bit there. And it's just a little bit. Just a little bit. You can tackle that. You can add that to what... If you already know this... You can add that. It's not a problem. If you can add that, you can add that. And if you can add that, you can add that. And then you start to see it, and that's amazing. Then next thing you know, you've got a bigger idea, and you're just building it out. This is why you write things down. A pen, a jotter. Write down what your goals are. I think I probably need to come up with a practice diary or something. This is another thing. Going back to the idea with the kinesthetic. The kinesthetic is how it feels. So some people, that might be their primary way of inputting the information. You think about somebody like Ray Charles or Stevie Wonder, how they play piano. They feel the way around. They know where everything is because it's the kinesthetic that they're relying on. That can be a dominant factor. And as well as that, with the sensory deprivation of not being able to visualize, the hearing becomes much more acute and able to pick up on things as well. And that's the theory behind that. It could be that, the kinesthetic, the visual. You might be more visual. And it tends to be that people are visual. Auditory is generally a little bit harder. Not many people have perfect pitch and can say, yeah, that's a C, and this is an E chord or whatever. Perfect pitch is a little harder. So those are the 3 ways of inputting the information into your brain. But the 4th way is writing things out. So writing out pictures of the D chord, or let's say that funky 13th chord. And by drawing it out, what you do is you transfer that image that's on the paper into your brain. And then that image that's in your brain is what becomes your Rolodex for the names of the chords or for the pictures of the chords that you put your fingers on. It informs your fingers what to do because you rely on the image in your head. And this is why the Cage system is so important, because it tells you that there are 5 shapes with that. So type out songs and add chords in pencil. I will be doing, like I said, now we've got the practicing method down. You'll understand what I'm talking about then when I say, okay, I'll put a poll up or something. I'll say, what are we doing? Are we looking at chords? Are we looking at technique? Can't. Yeah, wait for mine to around. Thank you, Christopher. Thank you, mate. It means a lot. So, look, what I'll do is I'll pick a lesson out of here and I'll keep on coming back to the book and doing lessons from the book so that you can have a bit more context than the YouTube videos. Because some of the YouTube videos, like I say, I know there's some of these videos that these point to are a bit, that they're looking a bit old, and I look a bit awkward in some of them because obviously they're early ones, and I didn't have the confidence for talking into camera, that kind of stuff. But but it's all a learning curve and it's all part of the journey, and I love it. And I love the fact that you guys are in the group and you're here to learn, and that's the main crux of it. So without further ado, I will bid you a fond adieu. I will see you later, and take care, guys, and I'll see you in the chat, and jobs are good. See you later. Take care. Bye.